At first, the empire feels eternal in the way mountains feel eternal. Heavy, obvious, unquestioned. Roads stretch out beneath your feet like veins pressed into the earth, stone laid so carefully it feels almost arrogant. You walk them because there is nowhere else to walk. They lead to markets, to barracks, to temples, to homes that smell of oil, sweat, and cooked grain. The air is warm with incense and dust, the kind that settles into your throat and reminds you who owns the ground beneath you. Rome breathes slowly, confidently, like something too large to imagine dying. Ships move steadily from distant provinces, bellies full of grain harvested by hands you will never see. Laws travel faster than armies now, spoken with authority that assumes obedience as a natural state of the world. And yet, the light feels different. You notice it first in the evening, when the sun lingers too long at the edges of buildings, unable to decide whether to stay or leave. Shadows stretch farther than they used to. Power still speaks loudly in proclamations, in statues, in coins stamped with familiar faces, but certainty has softened around the edges. Conversations trail off. Jokes about corruption land a little closer to home. This is not collapse, not yet. This is the moment before realization, when everything still works, but no longer feels inevitable. You live inside the routine. You have to. The city wakes early because hunger does not wait. Vendors shout themselves hoarse, selling bread already going stale. Animals are driven through streets too narrow for their bodies, leaving behind smells no one comments on anymore. You step carefully, because stepping carelessly means slipping into something warm and humiliating. Baths steam and echo with voices pretending not to hear each other's complaints. Water flows, miraculously still flowing, carried by arches that seem too solid to fail. You trust them because you must. Trust is easier than imagination. But something is straining. You feel it in the way soldiers look at their pay, in the way officials argue over tax burdens that no one wants to carry. The empire keeps asking for more grain, more loyalty, more patience, and the answers arrive slower each year. From the provinces come whispers of unrest, of borders pressed too hard, of enemies who no longer fear the eagle the way they once did. Rome hears these whispers and answers with speeches. Speeches are cheaper than solutions. Night settles gently, and the city glows with a tired confidence. Oil lamps flicker like thoughts no one wants to finish. Somewhere a senator dines extravagantly. Somewhere else a family waters down wine to make it last another day. You lie down on a bed that creaks with age, listening to the city breathe, carts rattling, voices drifting, dogs barking at nothing. Sleep comes but lightly. Even in dreams, the ground feels less firm. The army still marches because it always has. You watch them pass, boots striking stone in practiced rhythm, armor catching the light just enough to remind everyone who is in charge. But the faces beneath the helmets look older, tired. Campaigns stretch longer. Victories cost more. The borders are no longer abstract lines on a map. They are places where people die repeatedly for reasons that sound less convincing every time they're explained. In the markets, coins feel thinner, not physically, not yet, but symbolically. You turn them over in your hand, studying the emperor's face, wondering how long it has been since you believed in it. Inflation is discussed in careful tones, like a sickness everyone knows about but pretends not to have. Bread riots break out suddenly and sharply, like a slap to the face of order. They are suppressed quickly because Rome is very good at that. Too good. Suppression solves noise, not problems. Religion hums in the background, steady but altered. The old gods are still honored, their temples maintained, their rituals performed with the right words and the right offerings, but belief feels more habitual now, a performance learned early and never questioned. New ideas slip in quietly, strange cults, foreign gods, promises of salvation that do not involve the state. Rome tolerates them at first, amused, confident it can absorb anything. It always has. This time, the absorption feels less controlled. You notice how people speak about the past, not with pride exactly, but with comparison. We used to, they say. Once Rome would have. The words hang there, unfinished. Statues still rise, grand and polished, but fewer people stop to admire them. Monuments cannot fix the price of bread. Marble does not fill stomachs. Disease moves through the city like an unwanted rumor. Crowded streets make perfect pathways. You hear coughing at night, deep and wet, echoing through insulae stacked too high with too many lives. The dead are carried out early, before the heat has a chance to argue. There are prayers, of course. There are always prayers. But you begin to sense how thin the line is between divine protection and neglect. In the countryside, villas still gleam under the sun, owners insulated by distance and denial. Slaves work the fields, backs bent, hands scarred, lives measured in output rather than years. Rome's wealth still flows, but the channels feel clogged. Too many hands grasping, too many mouths insisting they are first. At night you hear stories, quiet ones, about governors skimming too much, about soldiers deserting, about barbarians who are not quite as barbaric as advertised. The word barbarian itself feels tired, overused, stretched to cover ignorance. Fear sharpens it again. The emperor appears in public, radiant, distant, surrounded by guards who scan the crowd with practiced suspicion. Applause rises automatically, like muscle memory. You clap because everyone else does, because not clapping would be noticed. The distance between ruler and ruled has grown wide enough to feel cold. Divinity used to bridge it, now it just decorates it. The roads begin to show cracks, small ones at first, a stone loosened here, a section unrepaired there. Maintenance is expensive, and excuses are cheaper. You step over imperfections and tell yourself it is nothing. Rome has survived worse. Rome always survives worse. That sentence is repeated often now, like a charm losing effectiveness through overuse. Time passes the way it always does, quietly, relentlessly. Generations are born into this softening certainty, never having known the sharp confidence of earlier days. For them, this is normal. That realization unsettles you more than any riot. Collapse does not arrive as an event, it arrives as a baseline. The army withdraws from a distant province. Officially, it's strategic. Unofficially, it's necessity. Maps are redrawn subtly, lines nudged inward. No one announces this as loss. Language becomes careful, evasive. You begin to understand that words are now being used to hold things together that no longer fit. Rome still smells like Rome: smoke, sweat, stone warmed by sun. Children still play in fountains, splashing water that might not always be this clean. Lovers still argue in doorways. Life continues, stubborn and detailed. That is the cruelest part. There is no moment when the world stops and says, "This is the end." One evening, standing on a hill, you look out over the city as the sun lowers itself behind rooftops and temples. The light turns everything gold, then red, then something bruised and uncertain. You feel a strange tenderness for this place, for its ambition, its cruelty, its impossible scale. Rome wanted to be forever. That desire built wonders. It also built expectations no reality could sustain. The empire doesn't know it is standing at dusk. Twilight is deceptive like that. It makes everything look softer, almost forgiving. The roads are still there, the laws still function, the stones still hold, but beneath your feet, beneath the rituals and routines, you sense the shift, not a collapse yet, but a loosening, the quiet moment before realization, when everything still works, but no longer feels inevitable. Rome has always grown by eating. You are taught this early, not as criticism, but as fact. Land folds into maps, people fold into census lists, gold folds into vaults that smell faintly of dust and power. At first, expansion feels strength, warm, loud, intoxicating. Victories arrive wrapped in celebration, triumphs roll through streets with noise and color, and for a moment it feels like the world itself is applauding. You believe this is what health looks like.